Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. Stock markets remain largely upbeat across Europe and the US ahead of the Fed's rate decision. A CNBC survey shows 100% of market participants expect a rate hike tonight and a pause in June. Crude oil prices plunge on rate hike fears. The sensex and the nifty snap a six-day winning streak ending with March losses. Mid-cap index bucks the trend, ends in the green. Bond yields cool to the lowest level in 13 months, boosting the borrowing prospects of corporate India.
Presently, as a situation, as we all have clearly clarified, the financial situation doesn't permit us to continue the operation, and therefore we have been kind of stalling and cancelling the bookings for next three days.
Hundreds of GoFast passengers stranded as the cash-strapped airline suspends operations for 2 days. CEO Kaushik Khona says the voluntary bankruptcy filing is aimed at protecting assets and finding a resolution. Adds that Pratt & Whitney paid compensation worth only $49 million against claims of $950 million. That's an exclusive. A setback for Deloitte and KPMG affiliate in the IL&FS fraud case. The Supreme Court sets aside the Bombay High Court order quashing Corporate Affairs Ministry proceedings to prosecute auditors, allows the SFIO to initiate proceedings. The apex court holds there had been no arbitrary exercise of power in the centre's decision to act against the auditors. TVS, Ola, Ather and Hero Moto to reimburse customers to the tune of 130 to 200 crore rupees each to comply with the subsidy cap under the FAME scheme. The government will release subsidies that were withheld on payment of reimbursements to customers. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. The ED conducts searches at Manappuram Finance's premises. Sources say the searches are in connection with allegations that the company has collected public deposits of over 100 crore rupees without the RBI's nod. Allegations also pertain to cash transactions without following KYC norms. The centre agrees to form a multi-ministry committee to examine whether certain rights can be granted to same-sex couples without legal recognition to their relationship. Tells the Supreme Court they would welcome suggestions from the petitioners. The apex court pushes petitioners to participate before the government committee. India slips 11 places in the World Press Freedom Index, ranked 161 out of 180 countries, according to Reporters Without Borders. Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan and Pakistan ranked higher than India. Hollywood films and television productions come to a halt after writers go on strike demanding higher pay and restricting the use of artificial intelligence. Production firms like Disney and Netflix have rejected the demands after last-minute talks break down. Well, the top story this evening, investors across the world waiting with bated breath as the US Federal Reserve gears up to announce its rate decision tonight. A CNBC Fed survey shows that 100% of market participants do expect a rate hike, but only 59% say the Fed should be hiking rates given the banking crisis in the US. A majority expect this to be the last rate hike in this cycle, with 77% expecting the Fed to hold rates in June. Here are economists and market experts with their expectations from the Fed.
The big picture problem is inflation. And if we just respond to market movements, we're just going to be pushed around and we're not going to solve the problem, because they're going to go back to what happened in the late 70s, early 80s when the Fed paused too soon. Ultimately, 25 basis points one way or another is not going to make or break the U.S. economy.
Fed is going to avoid the stop-and-go monetary policy of the 1970s when, they had to hike on three different occasions to really kill the back of inflation finally in the 80s. And I do think that positioning is also centered around a hike this time of 25 basis points.
So we expect the Fed to go 25 basis points. That's pretty much priced into the market. The more interesting question is what they signal about the June meeting and the path of rates going forward. We think that they'll signal a pause as the base case scenario, but they'll keep the path, they'll keep the door open. Our base case is that a mild recession will start in the third quarter of this year. It'll be about less than a 1% contraction from peak to trough in GDP. And to put that in perspective, that's about half the size of normal average post-war recession.
Well, reactions coming in, and stay tuned to CNBC TV18 this evening. Our Fed coverage starts at 11 p.m. We will bring you live action from the US as the Federal Reserve makes its rate decision. Back home, Dalal Street falling on weak global cues ahead of the US Fed rate decision. The Nifty and the Sensex down today after that 6-day winning streak that we've seen, ending 0.25% lower. Broader markets outperformed the blue chips, with the mid-cap index ending in the green. And onto the money markets. Indian bond yields have seen a sharp fall this week, with yields now at fresh 13-week lows. While yields have been falling since the monetary policy on the 8th of April, the fall has accelerated this week. Lata joins us here to analyze the reasons behind the fall. Lata.
Actually, it's a stealth rally. And although this week it is 8 basis points fall over the last 2 days, if you take from policy day, it is about a 20 basis point fall. And if you take from March 1st, then it is a 40 basis point fall, which means, corporates can actually borrow at 0.5 percentage point less if you are borrowing from the bond market. This is the lowest the yield has been since April 8th of last year. So it's a 13-month low that bond yields are at. That's huge. Now, what is explaining this fall? Of course, there are the immediate reasons. US yields have been falling. Where are they? 3.5% in the past month or so. Expectation that both the RBI and the Fed are mostly done with rate hikes, and the expectations of US recession, slowdown, if not recession, is pushing down crude prices. And, at 75, that will mean it will eventually at some point get passed on. But the bigger reason is the number of buyers have increased. The big buyers have been the HDFC twins, HDFC Bank and HDFC. Obviously, they have to come with SLR at 22% for the combined balance sheet on the day of the merger, which is whatever, June or July or whenever it is. So there's huge buying by these two guys, which is, 18% of the new balance sheet. HDFC balance sheet is a large amount of money. The other big buyers have been insurance companies. Remember, the budget said that over 5 lakh premium will not get tax benefits. So a lot of the high net worth individuals bought those high-paying policies, and that led to a lot of money which, get invested in the form of FRAs, forward rate agreements. Because these insurance companies want to invest this money over time in bonds, because it's an insurance policy, they enter into these forward rate agreements with banks. So banks typically warehouse these bonds for insurance companies for subsequent years as well. That's a huge amount of buying that came in. So all this led to this near 0.5% fall in yields.
Right, Lata, many thanks for joining us. From the money markets, the big corporate story this evening: the National Company Law Tribunal will hear the insolvency plea filed by GoFirst tomorrow. The cash-strapped airline has said its engine supplier, Pratt & Whitney, is responsible for the company's debacle. It says Pratt & Whitney failed to supply over the last 3 years engines, and its current financial situation does not permit Go Air to continue its operations. Now, GoFirst has halted operations for today and tomorrow, leaving hundreds of passengers stranded across the country. The airline has also stopped bookings from May 6th to May 15th. Speaking exclusively to CNBC TV18, the CEO of GoFirst, Kaushik Khona, says the voluntary insolvency plea is to protect the airline's assets and to try and find a resolution. He says that Pratt & Whitney owes the airline close to $950 million and is defying an arbitration order delivered in Singapore. GoFirst has filed a case against Pratt & Whitney in Delaware in the US. The CEO also added that promoters, the Wadia Group, remain committed to the airline.
We are not filing for bankruptcy. We are filing for a resolution process whereby, by making an application under Section 10, we are trying to move to the NCLT to find out if we can protect our assets and to see how we can again resume the operations under the provisions of the IBC Act. Unfortunately, IBC itself has a name which is called insolvency and bankruptcy, but the purpose of this whole application is for resolution. 24 months they have infused 3,200 crore. Not only that, I think I would be failing in my duty if I don't consider the kind of support which the government has also given. They have given the ECLGS scheme, which is Emergency Credit Line Guaranteed Scheme, and they have given a sanction of 1,500 crore, out of which we have drawn 1,300 crore. So we have actually infused 4,600 crore in last 24 months. if I don't get engines, even after putting more 5,000 crores in next 1 year, then also the entire infusion of the funds will go down the drain. We did receive the compensation from Pratt & Whitney out of the amount which was mentioned in DRHP of around $49 million. And the balance which was post the March 2020, we have still not received the compensation. We continue to raise this issue with them. In fact, we also made claims in the intermediate period in July 2022, as well as when we filed for the arbitration. And the claims are in the range of almost $950 million based on the AOG compensation, which has been evaluated by one of the very well-known firms.
And you can watch the entire conversation with the CEO of Go First on the flight path for the beleaguered airline. That's coming up for you at 5:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. tonight. And staying with aviation, even as Go First flounder SpiceJet is looking to try and take advantage. The low-cost airline has said that it plans to revive 25 of its grounded aircraft. Sources tell us that SpiceJet has already mobilized 400 crore rupees to try and revive these aircraft and will draw funds from the union government's emergency credit line scheme. Danish joins us now with more. Danish, one of the recipients of the ECLGS money through the scheme. But how does SpiceJet intend to get over its current challenges with getting more fleet on the in the air?
Well, low-cost carrier SpiceJet has announced that the airline will revive its 25 grounded aircraft, and the funds will be drawn from government's ECLGS scheme as well as from company's cash flow. The airline also said that the majority of the ECLGS funding received would be utilized for the revival of its grounded aircraft. SpiceJet sources further informed that the 25 planes were grounded due to supply chain issues, and there is a possibility that the airline will likely lease more aircraft in the future. SpiceJet till now has mobilized rupees 400 crores to revive its grounded fleet and is confident that this will add extra capacity for the peak summer season. This development has come a day after another low-cost carrier, Go First, has approached NCLT for voluntary insolvency due to Pratt & Whitney engine issues.
Danish, many thanks. Now, the Civil Aviation Ministry said that it is in constant touch with airlines and OEMs on the issue of grounded aircraft. Piyush Srivastava, the Senior Economic Advisor at the Civil Aviation Ministry, spoke with my colleague Madiha Mujawar. He said that 2 airlines have been suffering because of a particular engine maker and its inability to supply engines. Remember, the 2 airlines in question are Go First and SpiceJet.
The aircraft are there on the ground because of the whiplash action of the COVID. So what has happened is the supply chains have got disrupted. One particular supplier of engines has not been able to service the engines and provide alternate engines to the airlines. So the couple of airlines, 2 airlines in fact, have been suffering very badly, and there are 70 AOGs, 70 aircraft on the ground, which is a huge number considering this small fleet that they operate and the small fleet that we have as a country. So the passengers have been put to some inconvenience. On our part, we have been in constant touch with the airlines and also the OEM, both at the official level and as well as the diplomatic level. So we are doing whatever is required, but then there are certain issues that are beyond our control.
So Pratt & Whitney was summoned by the Aviation Ministry as well a few months back due to the engine shortage issues. What was their response to the Aviation Ministry?
I'll not like to speak on individual companies, but as I said, this is something that we are taking up at the highest level.
Well, officials from the Civil Aviation Ministry there on the aircraft that find themselves grounded here in India on account of engine troubles. In global earnings, Starbucks beating street estimates. In Q2, revenues came in at $8.7 billion, which beat estimates of $8.4 billion. This was powered by better-than-expected international sales. The coffee giant has seen its same-store sales increase in China for the first time since Q3 of 2021. China is Starbucks' second-largest market. In the US, same-store sales were up 12%. Ford Motor came out with a strong Q1, the firm topping estimates on all fronts. This as the automaker's fleet and legacy operations outweighed growing losses in electric vehicles. Auto revenue came in at over $39 billion versus an estimated $36 billion. Ford has reiterated that it expects a full-year adjusted earnings between $9 and $11 billion. However, Ford added it expected to lose $3 billion from its EV operations. It is a setback for Deloitte and a KPMG affiliate in the IL&FS fraud case. The Supreme Court has decided to set aside a Bombay High Court order that quashed the Corporate Affairs Ministry's proceedings to prosecute auditors. The court has allowed the SFIO to initiate proceedings against them. Ashmit joins us now with more details. Ashmit, what will this mean potentially for those in question?
Well, just to set the things in context, the proceedings in context, keep in mind that the centre, the MCA, sought to proceed under Section 145 of the Companies Act of 2013. What that essentially does, it gives the centre the power to not only, one, remove the auditor, but once the centre is able to successfully make grounds of fraudulent conduct by the auditors, then essentially what follows is that there could be a 5-year ban, and then subsequently there is also a provision within the Companies Act for punishment, where the punishment can go up to as much as 10 years in jail. So those are, of course, the legal provisions in question. What has transpired today is that the Supreme Court has upheld this power available to the centre, that the centre can, in fact, go ahead and can seek such form of action against errant auditors, against fraudulent auditors. And while saying that, the Supreme Court has set aside the Bombay High Court order. The Bombay High Court had granted relief and had said that these auditors cannot be proceeded against. The centre cannot take such action. That has been set aside. What this does is that it paves the way for the centre to go ahead and to make an application before the NCLT to seek action against these auditors. That's part one. The other, of course, is criminal proceedings. The Supreme Court, while allowing for the provisions of Section 145, what it has also done is that it has opened doors for the SFIO. The SFIO investigation had been stayed by the Bombay High Court, had been shut down, had been quashed by the Bombay High Court. In flipping that order, what the Supreme Court has also done is that opened this gateway for an SFIO investigation into the matter. So clearly, both as far as Deloitte and BSR are concerned, will be facing action, will be facing heat, not just civil action on account of the potential 5-year ban, but also criminal action at the hands of the SFIO.
All right, Ashmit, that of course is an important development, but let's also talk about the ongoing proceedings in the same-sex marriage hearing. The union government has today proposed setting up a multi-ministry committee to address the concerns of the LGBTQ community. The committee is to be headed by the Cabinet Secretary. This is what the Solicitor General told the Supreme Court. Ashmit, what was the response of the Chief Justice-led bench to this idea, to this proposal that was put forth by the government?
Well, the words that fell from the bench is that even these small steps matter and could lead to larger gains. That's the advice coming in from the Apex Court, from the CJI himself, as well as all the 5 judges of the bench, saying that this is something that should be welcomed by the petitioners. The Solicitor General today submitted before the Apex Court that in trying to find a via media, what they've done is that the centre will now be constituting a committee. It will have representation of multiple ministries and will be headed by none other than the Cabinet Secretary himself, and that he will take charge, and that this is a forum, a platform where the petitioners can voice their concerns going forward. Now, initially, the petitioners had echoed concerns, saying that this would only be an administrative exercise, whereas what they've sought, which is recognizing the fundamental right to marry, that is something that will require a court declaration, that will require legislative changes, and that is not something that this committee will be able to do. And that was the concern that the petitioners cited. However, all the 5 judges in unison advised the petitioners that small steps matter, that incremental steps, in fact, is something that will help realize these gains, and in fact even pointed out that even though the Supreme Court or the centre may or may not agree with the right to marry, there is an agreement, at least on the idea of cohabitation, that there are legal consequences, there are practical consequences of cohabitation which will require changes and amendments to various laws. That is something that the committee can, in fact, go forward and deal with. In fact, at one point, the CJI even remarked that would the petitioners want to risk these incremental gains at a time while pursuing larger claims before the Apex Court and the government. So with that advice, the petitioners appear to have reconciled and said that they will take into consideration this committee. But clearly, the government here looking for a via media, and the Apex Court pitching for perhaps more negotiations and conversations between the two sides.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us with both those stories. Time for us to head into a short break, but up next, TVS, Ola, Ather and Hero Moto to reimburse customers to comply with the subsidy cap under the FAME scheme. The government will release subsidies that were withheld so far on payment of the dues. Exclusive when we return.
I'm a chameleon. It's my job to change color. But your wealth manager? Well, they shouldn't be copying me, you know. You know that. Choose Nuvama. We only do what's right for you and your money. Nuvama. Let's do it right.
घर कल ही लिस्ट किया था और आज लाइन लग गई। 99 एकर्स पे प्रॉपर्टी आएगी, लेने वालों की लाइन लग जाएगी। घर लेना हो या बेचना, 99 एकर्स से ही पूछना।
18 years of honoring excellence in business leadership. A stage that elevates peers into role models. A ceremony that ignites aspiration in young achievers. A congregation where the pioneers shape our nation's future. A celebration of leadership. Standard Chartered presents India Business Leader Awards, a legacy inspiring excellence, in partnership with Hindustan Times.
Presented by Standard Chartered.
Whenever I had ice cream or cold water, I would experience a sharp shooting sensation, so I just kept ignoring it. Even my hot chai was giving me the same amount of discomfort. My dentist recommended Sensodyne, so now I can be completely carefree and sip my hot cup of tea. It really works.
Friends, I want to share some good news with all of you. Firstly, like always, we have performed very well this time also.
But what will we get?
Secondly, we shall invest in employee benefit.
Come on, now tell us what will we get?
And thirdly, we shall invest in LIC's group funded plans.
Great, we'll get everything. Now, leave encashment, gratuity, and along with pension, our future is secure.
Yes, employees' real benefit lies in LIC pension and group scheme.
On to CNBC-TV18 exclusive. 4 electric vehicle companies will have to refund the cost of EV chargers that it sold to customers in order to comply with the subsidy cap under the FAME scheme. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 the government will release the subsidies that were withheld so far to these companies once customers have been reimbursed. Parikshit joins us now with the details. Parikshit, so explain this to our viewers. Under the FAME scheme, a company was only eligible to avail of the subsidy if the e-scooter was priced at $150,000 or lower, correct?
That's right. All these 4 companies, Hero MotoCorp, TVS, Ola, Ather, they were under investigation following whistleblower complaints that they were selling the scooter above the 1.5 lakh threshold. Under FAME, subsidies are given to a maximum of 60,000 rupees per scooter only for vehicles costing up to 1.5 lakhs. And this is inclusive of all software and charger costs. There were companies, including these companies, which were selling scooters at 1.6 lakhs, 1.7 lakhs, and the price of the charger was being charged separately. Now, the government has made clear with this investigation and the conclusion that any vehicle sold availing the FAME subsidy has to be within the 1.5 lakh price point, and the charger has to be inclusive of the ex-showroom cost. So all these companies, Ola, Ather, TVS, Hero MotoCorp, will be refunding the amount collected from customers as the charger cost, chargers which were bought as accessories. Now, the amount to be refunded by TVS, Ola and Ather could range between 130 to 200 crores. Each company has given an undertaking that they will do so. And what the government has done to ensure this amount is given back to customers is they will be holding back the FAME subsidies. The FAME subsidies for these companies have been held back since the 1st of March. And till the time these companies don't make the payments to customers, the subsidies will not be released. All these companies, Hero MotoCorp, TVS, Ola, Ather, have reduced prices of their scooters in order to comply with the FAME norms as well.
All right, Parikshit, let's see when the companies reimburse this amount and when the withheld subsidies are released by the government. Moving on, the Enforcement Directorate has conducted searches at multiple premises linked to Manappuram Finance in Kerala. This is connection with a money laundering investigation. Yash joins us now with the details. Yash, what is this really about?
Well, that's correct, Shireen. So, of course, Manappuram Finance was a stock which remained under the pressure throughout the day. And this was largely because of the Enforcement Directorate searches which were conducted in Kerala, Thrissur, at various locations, commercial locations linked to the company, that is Manappuram Finance. Not just the commercial locations, but also the promoters, VP Nandkumar's premises were searched by the Enforcement Directorate. Essentially, the case and the searches are happening in relation to two things. One is that the allegations are that Manappuram Finance took deposits from people to the tune of about 100 to 150 crore rupees. Now, of course, Manappuram Finance is an NBFC and it cannot accept deposits from people. This was done without prior RBI approval, so which is what ED is also looking at. Apart from that, also there were allegations that certain cash transactions done by the company were not done against proper KYC requirements. So that also is something which Enforcement Directorate would be looking at. Quite towards the end of the trading day, Manappuram Finance did inform the exchanges that their registered office was searched by the Enforcement Directorate. They are cooperating with the agency and providing all necessary information.
All right, that is the allegation being made by the ED against Manappuram Finance. Yash, appreciate you joining us. Investment advisors have written to market regulator SEBI seeking a clarification on the new advertisement rules. SEBI has barred the use of words like superlative, number one, best, among others. Shivani Bajaj joins us now with the details. What exactly are they arguing against, Shivani?
Registered investment advisors are expressing their concerns on social media about the recent advertisement norms by market regulator SEBI. Many such advisors are saying that the business isn't viable anymore. The Association of Registered Investment Advisors has sent a written representation to SEBI pointing out the confusion due to the new norms put out by the market regulator. The biggest doubt is about whether or not advertisement rules apply to RIA's communication with the existing clients, whether or not the websites of these RIAs need to be approved by SEBI registered bodies as well. Industry sources tell CNBC-TV18 that SEBI is also planning on formulating a centralized investment account for RIAs to collect money from their investors. SEBI is in fact in touch with the Association of Investment Advisors for the same, and a consultation paper is likely to be put out soon. Advisors say that the frequency of these changes in rules is making them anxious and adding extra cost and compliance. Important to note that added regulations for RIAs were put out by SEBI in 2020, and the investment advisors are saying that the profit margins have gone down significantly since then, and the new compliance norms add to business cost and also hinder the smooth functioning of their businesses.
Shivani, many thanks for joining us. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues when we return.